It looks like for now, the Mariners are done piggybacking Luis Castillo and Bryce Miller every fifth day. This has been one of the two solutions employed to keep both these guys stretched out and ready to be part of the rotation to start a game at any point in the season. Uh, Bryce Miller started the year on the IL. Luis Castillo struggled at the beginning of the season. Emerson Hancock is who really complicated things by pitching very well. And now the Mariners have what much of the fan base is interpreting as a huge problem, which is they have six viable starters on their roster, and Mariners fans are coming up to, they're coming to these conclusions that you have to make these drastic measures like permanently moving Luis Castillo to the bullpen. You can't keep doing this piggyback. You can't keep doing a six-man rotation. There's no way it makes sense. However, the Mariners are successful right now. And by the way, and I'll share this tweet early on. The Mariners have been successful in the piggyback games. This is a tweet from Adam Jude. 3 times through their piggyback, Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo have combined to allow 5 earned runs in 27 innings pitched for a 1.67 ERA. That is great. The communication, especially as we went through the first 2 rounds of this piggyback situation, the communication seemed like it was lacking based on the reactions we saw from Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo, respectively. But that doesn't mean that it's bad. Just because the players are less comfortable with it or it bucks conventional wisdom, that doesn't mean that it's bad. And I will admit, I am someone who is biased towards change in baseball. Someone who I like seeing new shit. I like seeing new ways to play the game. I was frustrated when the league legislated the shift instead of teams figuring out how to solve the shift offensively. We saw Luke Raley yesterday get a bunt base hit because Nolan Arenado was playing so far back and just giving up a base hit to him. So I'm certainly biased in that I'm invigorated by the idea of trying new strategies out in baseball. This one to me makes a lot of sense. I would say the spot where I would not profess to have any expertise on it, and that I think most people who talk about it don't, is the psychology of being a starter versus the psychology of being a reliever and how ingrained that is into these guys' ego and how much their ego dictates how well they pitch and all this amateur psychology bullshit that I think most people who talk about it don't have the qualifications to even talk about it at all. And then even the ones who do, maybe because they played baseball at a high level or they have some psychology background, you're still talking in a range of probabilities that are far from 100% of you being accurate. And the things that you're even, let's say you even correctly portray the hypothesis that those things have a massive run value effect. So, I'm not saying the Mariners should stick with either a 6-man rotation or a piggyback the rest of the season, but the idea that the piggyback was such a crisis just eluded logic completely. The reasons I saw were outside of the players being uncomfortable were kind of asinine. They'd say like, oh, it taxes the bullpen. It takes an arm away from the bullpen. That's not true. It adds one arm to the bullpen, and it guarantees that person's going to cover 3, 4, 5 innings. The entire bullpen so far, outside of Jose Ferrer and Andres Munoz, in a game where Luis Castillo struggled I think the Mariners might have been a little quick to pull the trigger on pulling Luis Castillo in that game. But outside of that game, the game that really people got so upset after one iteration of this concept, and it's worked so well since, and did kind of worked pretty well that day too, by the way, until the Mariners seemed to get intimidated or scared by it. The outside of that game, it's meant a day off for the entire bullpen each week. That's huge. That is huge. To put 4 innings on a reliever, whoever that is, if it's someone who, just because that person's not obviously defined each week, but to put 4 innings a week on a reliever or potentially 8 innings on a 6-game week that whatever, you know what I'm saying? That's huge. That's not overtaxing the bullpen. That's not increasing the strain on the bullpen. It's reducing the strain on the bullpen. Now, you might have to be a little more deliberate about bullpen use, but what it also means is that you going into that game, you go, well, shit, we can use 6 relievers. It doesn't matter. Luis Castillo's got 4 innings tomorrow, probably, in relief. Bryce Miller has 5 innings tomorrow, potentially, in relief. So, and you can see, I mean, the Adam Jude tweet here that I'm showing shows 1.67 ERA. It's been remarkably successful. I've seen people, in fact, a 6-man rotation is probably more likely to cause additional strain. And I will say this, 6-man rotation is probably my preference, though I might be coming around to the piggyback because of the reasons I've talked about. The benefit of a 6-man rotation, apart from the fact that it just keeps these guys on the roster, is that it gives all your pitchers another day of rest. We don't have a ton of data, I don't think, on what 5 and 6 days of rest look like, what 6 days of rest looks like compared to 5 days of rest. I don't know that the difference is big enough. But what I will say is I don't think that the Mariners pitchers from top to bottom, and especially from middle to bottom, are that much different from each other. And I know Luis Castillo started off weak. I want to tell you about what these guys' stats have been like since May 13th when Bryce Miller came back off the IL, and the Mariners started doing these funky things, 6-man rotation, piggyback, these concepts that don't feel comfortable to fans, and that very obviously, because of the Mariners' apparent lack of communication, were not super comfortable for the players either. But since they've done that, so Brian Wu, I'm just going off xFIP. So that's fielding independent pitching, expected fielding independent pitching. So it neutralizes home run to fly ball rate, basically. It attempts to take away fly ball luck that has led to a surplus of home runs that maybe you wouldn't expect to carry forward into future appearances, that level of bad luck. So the Mariners starting rotation / 6th swing man, whatever we're going to call him, the best fielding xFIP, expected fielding independent pitching, is Brian Wu at 2.5. Bryce Miller's next, 3.02. George Kirby, 3.83. Emerson Hancock, 4.03, despite having a 1.59 ERA, which is kind of my point. Emerson Hancock has been pitching better this year. His results are better. His peripherals are better. Everything is better. For the last 3 weeks, he hasn't been as good, and the results haven't shown it yet. Now, over the course of a season, if he keeps pitching and getting these same batted ball results, the chances are that the results are going to be worse. He's had, let's see if I can pull up the StatCast stuff real quick. Let's get through that list real quick. Emerson Hancock, 4.03 xFIP. Luis Castillo, 4.10 xFIP. Logan Gilbert is at a 4.21 xFIP. So technically, in those last 3 weeks, Luis Castillo's been better than Logan Gilbert. I don't hear anyone here calling for Logan Gilbert to be removed from the rotation, including me. I want all 6 of these guys to stay in until one of them will eventually probably need some time off for an injury. But for now, you have 6 guys in the rotation. You're potentially, if you're planning this team for the postseason, you shouldn't be taking it for granted that the team is going to make the postseason. But they've been very good in this stretch. They're in first place in the AL West. They've won 6 straight games, including 2 turns of the piggyback. Let's see what they're in those games that I'm talking about. They're 10-7. This has turned the Mariners season around, you could argue. That's what I don't understand, is like the amount of things people are willing to ascribe credit to give credit to turning the season around. This Mariners piggyback thing and 6-man rotation directly correlates with the Mariners starting to play better. And itself, those games themselves have been, they're 2-1 in those games. So Very frustrating to me that this conversation, I think it's gotten out of control. I will say originally, I thought that the response from Bryce Miller and the response from Luis Castillo in the dugout were like worrisome, but this has gone so well. And I will say even yesterday, like Luis gives up what he gave up 2 runs, 1 earned, but he got BABIP'd for the I love that as a verb. He got BABIP'd and he got like the chopper to second base. That's a play that I frankly is just on JP Crawford. It's the exact thing we've been talking about. I have some things. I have some more to say about the Mariners defense. Hopefully later this week. It's something I've been trying to like compile information on, and hopefully I'll have the time and energy to do it. I will say I was in on short notice, ended up headlining Spokane Comedy Club this weekend, and then got home, and now my daughter is homesick from school and having all kinds of let's say she's expelling some stuff that I need to deal with on a somewhat regular basis. She's asleep for a nap right now, so that's why I'm downstairs recording in my dining room with a green screen instead of in my office. But the Mariners defense, it kind of blows my mind that nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to accept that J.P. Crawford is one of baseball's absolute worst defenders at shortstop. Were it not for C.J. Abrams, I think we'd be talking about J.P. Crawford as the most embarrassingly bad shortstop in baseball. And we're all just kind of accepting that the Mariners are going to let him keep playing there because such a great guy. The franchise owes a lot to him and the efforts he put in, and the story of him and the franchise and the way they've meshed so well is like, it is nice. It is heartwarming. I want J.P. Crawford to be part of the Mariners organization well into the future, long after his playing days. Love the guy. I've waxed poetic about it, but the 6-man rotation and the piggyback, those aren't crises. These are things, by the way, that like the Dodgers did through the whole playoffs were these piggyback games. This is modern baseball. You want to be at the leading edge? Sometimes it's a little uncomfortable. Sometimes, unfortunately, you have to really over-communicate, it seems like, with these players and get them to buy in. And as of right now, I don't know if Luis Castillo and Bryce Miller are bought in. It seems like I can guarantee without amateur psychology that 2 weeks ago they weren't. So I'm kind of sad to see the piggyback go, to be honest with you. It's been a fun storyline, and I think that I don't necessarily in a perfect world, the Mariners would have a solution for this where like they could trade one of those guys. I don't know that Luis Castillo, I mean, my suspicion would be that he doesn't have any value on the trade market right now because his results have been so bad and his contract is large and he's in his mid-30s. Contract is large relative to a guy who's in his mid-30s. He's due to make $50 million next year or the next 2 years. Is that right? No, I think I got this. This year and next year, a combined $50 million. Luis Castillo contract. And I think there's a vesting option actually for a year after that. Let me make sure that I'm right. Yeah, so I believe he will make like 24 point something million dollars, and then he has a $25 million vesting option for 2028 if he reaches 180 innings pitched in 2027 or something based on the Cy Young vote. So probably not a reachable vesting option. So I would suspect that it's, the 2 years, $50 combined million, whatever's left of this year, the prorated amount of this year. No team's going to want to take that on right now. Not with the results he's been putting up, and the Mariners don't have a ton of leverage. And then Bryce Miller was not very good last year, he was injured, but it was not very good last year. Starts this year injured, is an iffy proposition whether or not he's going to be healthy or productive like this for the entire season or the rest of his career. So I don't think you want to sell low on Bryce Miller, and I don't think you can really sell Luis Castillo. And I certainly don't think, more than anything, that Luis Castillo is a guy you should just cast off, just throw into the bullpen. I just knocked something over on my table. Out of passion, by the way. I don't think you should just cast him off. This is not a guy you just want to throw away. He is still a productive pitcher. The predictive peripheral stats suggest that he's pretty much just as good as he was last year and the year before. He took a dip the year before that. If you were going to start discounting Luis Castillo, you're 3 years too late, 2 years too late. So, yeah, I'm okay with the 6-man rotation. I'm starting to come around on preferring the piggyback. No matter what, I think what the Mariners are doing, keeping all these guys on the roster, in the rotation, stretched out so that they can be starters at points in 2026, it's the right move.